someone asked us to name 3 countries we would return to without hesitation, Iceland would definitely be one of them. This is a place we truly love, not only for its landscapes, but for the overall experience. And if Iceland is on your travel list, this is actually the right time to start planning. Not 2 weeks before departure, not one day, now. In this video, I'll share very practical tips based on our personal experience. We'll discuss the advantages and disadvantages, what surprised us, what was easier than we expected, what was more challenging, and of course, what you can see and experience in this beautiful country. So let's begin. We are Olena and Yuri, and we welcome you to our YouTube channel. First, we would like to share some very important things you should know about Iceland before planning your trip. Number 1. The best season to visit Iceland is the summer months, June, July and August. This is when the days are long, the roads are fully accessible, and you can see the country at its best. However, if you want to save money, consider traveling outside the peak tourist season, in May or in September. The weather is still relatively mild, fewer tourists are here, and prices are noticeably lower. This can make a significant difference to your overall budget. Number 2, the weather in Iceland is not predictable. Or rather, it is predictable in one way. You should expect wind and rain, especially in the mornings and evenings. Not in every single region, but in most areas popular with tourists. You must be prepared for sudden changes even on the same day. Number 3, food is expensive, very expensive. If budget is not a concern, you can enjoy restaurants and cafes without a second thought. But if you want to reduce expenses, supermarkets are your best option. You can buy fresh bread, cheese, deli products, and make simple sandwiches. Believe us, this saves a substantial amount of money over the course of a trip. We visited Iceland in the middle of May, before the high tourist season officially began. That made a big difference. There were fewer people, it felt more peaceful, and the prices were more reasonable compared to the summer months. If you look at the map of Iceland, driving around the entire island following Route 1 is approximately 1400 kilometers, which is about 870 miles. Technically, you could drive the distance in a long day without stopping, but that would make no sense. If you want to stop, explore, walk to waterfalls, enjoy the landscapes, try local food, take photos, and truly experience the country, you'll need at least 5 to 7 days. This would be a comfortable minimum. Of course, it depends on your travel style and what you want to see. We'll share now how we planned our route. We have also helped several of our friends organize trips to Iceland, some for 3 days, some for 7, and they were very happy with the results. So let's move to day 1. We arrived at Keflavik International Airport. It's a modern and well-organized airport. One of the first things we did was exchange some money into Icelandic krona. While many places accept credit cards and payment systems are widely available, there are still situations, small cafes, remote areas, parking machines, where having local currency is useful. This changes over time, of course, but our advice is simple. Have at least some Icelandic cash with you just in case. It was very early in the morning when we arrived, so we had enough time before our scheduled visit to the Blue Lagoon, one of the most famous attractions in Ireland, and a place many people already know about. We had rented a car in advance and everything was prepaid. However, we later discovered that we had been overcharged for insurance. The insurance cost is almost the same as the car rental itself. We only realized this on the last day of our trip. Here's a very important tip. Carefully review the type of insurance you are being offered. In our case, we were charged for winter insurance, which is more expensive. Since we were traveling in May, this was unnecessary. Always double-check what are you paying for, especially in Iceland, where additional insurance coverage can significantly increase the total cost. Because we still had time before the Blue Lagoon opened, we decided to drive to the nearest town, Grindavik. At that time of our visit, it was accessible. As many of you know, due to volcanic activity over the past 2 years, access to Grindavik has been restricted, and at a certain period the town has been evacuated. It has almost become a ghost town, but when we visited, it was still a small, beautiful fishing community. What fascinated us most was the landscape. Dark lava fields covered with soft green moss. It truly felt like walking on another planet. We spent some time there, walking around, looking at the ocean, simply absorbing the atmosphere. After that, we returned to the Blue Lagoon. The Blue Lagoon is not just a pool, it is a real retreat complex. Even then, there was already a beautiful hotel there, and the hotel's administration kindly allowed us to see the area. They showed us rooms with a separate private entrance directly into a smaller geothermal lagoon connected to the accommodation. The water temperature stays around 37-39 degrees Celsius year-round, which is approximately 98-102 degrees Fahrenheit. The water contains silica, and the famous white silica mud is used for facial treatments. When the lagoon opened, we were provided with towels and a generous amount of conditioner. This is important. The geothermal water contains minerals and sulfur, which can make your hair very dry and stiff if not protected. Many people were wearing hats, often wool hats, to protect the hair from the mineral-rich water. We didn't know about that in advance. That's why our hair looked wet most of the time. We kept applying conditioner to protect it. What is remarkable is that even when the outside temperature was around 5 or 6 degrees Celsius, the water felt perfectly warm. You don't feel the cold air while you are immersed. The contrast is strong but very comfortable. We chose one of the packages, which included different silica and mineral mud masks you can apply to your face while in the lagoon, along with a glass of champagne. It felt like a full spa experience rather just swimming. We spent 5 or 6 hours there. We would stay in the water, come out for a few minutes to rest, and then go back. The combination of warm water, cool air, and the surrounding lava landscape is incredibly relaxing. We had booked dinner at one of the restaurants within the same complex. However, after a late lunch and several hours in the lagoon, we felt so relaxed and honestly quite tired that we decided to skip dinner and continue enjoying the experience. One thing you should be prepared for is the smell. The geothermal water has a noticeable sulfur odor. At first it can feel unpleasant, but after some time you adapt and stop paying attention. In general, whenever you travel in Iceland and notice a strong sulfur smell in the air or water, it usually indicates geothermal activity. It means you are in a hot area, possibly near geysers, hot springs, or underground geothermal system. These areas are safe when properly maintained, but you should always respect warning signs and stay on market paths. In the afternoon, completely soaked and very happy, we headed towards our accommodation. It was a guest house located about 1 hour and a half from the Blue Lagoon. Instead of taking the main highway, we chose smaller local roads to explore more and see landscapes not always included in standard tourist routes. Our first stop was Grenovatn, a small but striking green lake. It's not large, but the color is intense and unusual. Again, there was that characteristic sulfur smell in the air. We spent some quiet time there. While my husband rested for a few minutes, I walked around, talking in the surroundings and snapping photos. After the quiet stillness of the green lake, we drove just a little further, less than a kilometer, and suddenly the landscape changed completely. We arrived to Sultan in the Krusovik geothermal area, and this is where Iceland truly begins to feel alive. At first you see steam rising from the ground, then you hear it, a deep bubbling sound like the earth is breathing, and we step onto the wooden trail and air became thick with the smell of sulfur. The colors were unreal, bright yellow sulfur deposits, red and orange soil stained with iron and minerals, white and pale blue crust around the hot springs. It looked like you were on another planet. And then you realize this is not decoration, this is active geology. The mud pools were boiling, not gently warm, boiling. The temperature in many of these geothermal spots reaches 100 degrees Celsius, sometimes even higher, just below the surface. That's 212 degrees Fahrenheit. The ground outside the market pass can be thin and unstable. In some places, only a fragile crust separates you from scalding water and steam. That is why it's essential to stay on the designated trails and wooden boardwalks, not one step off. These rules are not formalities, they are safety measures. And just behind the Sultan geothermal area, there is another huge lake, Kleifarvatn. After all the bubbling earth and rising steam, you suddenly see this vast, dark, quiet body of water surrounded by mountains. The contrast is striking. We walked slowly, watching the steam drift across the hills, listening to the earth bubbling beneath us. It was beautiful, powerful, and slightly intimidating at the same time. In Iceland, nature does not perform for you. It simply reminds you who is in control. Our guest house was located along Route 1, which was very convenient. I'll tell you more about this specific place in the next video and show you exactly where we stayed. As we were driving toward it, we passed endless lava fields covered with soft green moss. It almost looked alive. The lava's texture is rough and sharp, but the moss creates a smooth, almost velvety surface. The contrast is striking. However, this landscape can be deceptive. When you look at it from the road, it seems open and easy to explore, but once you step onto it, you realize how uneven and unstable it is. The lava rocks are judged full of holes and have hidden gaps. You can easily twist your ankle or injure your foot if you are not careful. That's why we always stay on marked trails and designated paths, not only for safety but also to protect the fragile moss. In Iceland, moss can take decades to recover after damage. So our rule is simple: enjoy the beauty but respect the land. Walk where it's allowed, and in that way you stay safe and the landscape remains untouched for others. For just one day, it was an overwhelming experience. We had barely slept the night before, yet we managed to see so many extraordinary places. And despite the fatigue, it felt like love at first sight. Everywhere we went, we felt that Iceland was different, raw, honest, powerful, and from that very first day, we knew this country would stay with us. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to our channel. In the next part, I'll show you what you can realistically see in just one day in Iceland, especially if you don't have too much time to travel around the entire Iceland.